Tenable Network Security, creators of Nessus, the world's best vulnerability scanner. Jumpstart your security program today and evaluate Security Center CV, the continuous monitoring solution. For more information, visit them on the web at tenable.com. ProXPN is the leading VPN service offering free accounts, excellent premium features, and an outstanding commitment to privacy and security online. Use the discount code WEEKLY and save 50% off for life. NetSparker, the developers of desktop and cloud-based web application security scanners that enable you to automatically identify vulnerabilities in your web applications and web services. NetSparker scanners employ a unique and dead-accurate vulnerability scanning engine that automatically verifies vulnerabilities with a proof of concept. For more information, visit them on the web at netsparker.com or email them at contact@netsparker.com. Welcome back, everyone, to Security Weekly. This is the security news for this week. And we've just got gobs and gobs of news.
Not much happened this week, did it?
No, I mean,
it's been
just
a slow week, right?
Slow week.
I tried to get on Twitter.
It was slow
Twitter
because
last
it was
Friday.
It was slow because it was a distributed denial of service attack.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. So Jeff, Jack, and Michael is on via Skype, and we've been kind of hinting toward. Actually, we were talking while we weren't on the air about this, and I kind of have a somewhat controversial thing. I think that with this whole Internet of Things distributed denial of service attack, and I'll throw this out there and I make a criticism for it. To me, it reminds me of when I worked for a university in 2001, 2003. What happened? Worms were running around infecting systems, both on the local network and across the Internet. And what did we do? Well, since they were using ports that were associated with this particular kind of malware, 135 through 139 and 445, slowly, as we mentioned before, over time, we block those ports.
Right.
And slowly over time, everyone started blocking those ports. We started in the university network. We started on a perimeter. We went up to our ISPs. And eventually our ISPs were like, yeah, you know what? We can. And then people whined. And they were like, oh, but this, that, and the other thing. But eventually, all those ports got blocked for the greater good of the Internet. Now, what we did locally on the university, in this situation,
5 down, 65,000 to go.
Yeah. But the interesting part was those were very well-defined ports that we could do that with. When we look at the IoT device security, they're not so well-defined ports.
Right.
I mean, in this case, it was Telnet, but it doesn't have to be Telnet.
Right.
I mean, we've done the research.
Right.
It could very well be port 80.
Right.
A lot of ISPs block port 82. So, I mean, there's a lot of factors at play.
And it depends on whether the ports that we would block to prevent this are the ports that are used so you can grab your smartphone and turn up your thermostat, right? Or
Right. Yes.
So if they're doing port forward in the application,
Yes.
you open port 6000 or whatever, and depending on how the box responds, it may send you one direction, and if you block that, you can't use your iPhone.
Could we make some serious strides with the security of the Internet by blocking port 23?
Yep.
I'm just throwing that out there. Like, what if we were to block
Could we?
it?
Yes.
Could we? I mean,
But could
would
you-
it be the
could-
same thing? Would people,
we
like,
get
with
away with
135, 139, 445, would people be like, wah, 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 and then eventually maybe we get around it? Maybe not. Maybe it's too popular.
Well,
Who
nobody
loses access?
still uses port 23, do they?
Apparently, about 400,000 or 500,000 IoT devices use this.
Now, and what gets me is most of those devices are somewhere behind some sort of firewall, which apparently probably has UPnP turned on, which is why the hole's poked in the firewall. That's my only guess.
I think that's one scenario, Jack, that I've talked about on one of our shows recently, is that UPnP can definitely open
the devil.
It is the devil can open up these ports. But how many people just either full NAT forward to their webcam so that it's on the Internet, or how many of these are in environments where it's a publicly routable IP address, and they're plugging the webcam in so that it can monitor the construction of a building, and well, it's all public anyway, so we'll just plug it into the public Internet, and they don't even know it's running Telnet, or that it has a default password.
Right.
So that's one thing. The other thing, which I find very interesting and somewhat controversial, is what if so we can detect these devices today. We have the 60 default usernames and passwords and the port in the protocol that identifies them as vulnerable, that makes them participate in this botnet. What if we tell the ISPs, well, if the attackers can find these devices that are vulnerable, like you can too, and rather than turning them into a botnet, can't you just shut them off and filter them?
Well, the ISPs are running on too thin a margin, and they don't have permission. You know, that's a
that's
a
an issue.
CFAA abuse. I think that there is a possibility. There are a couple of things that the idea that the FBI or government's talked about whether or not we should take them out or aggressively patch.
Right.
Vigilante patching. The
I
government.
take you back to the lion worm,
Right.
where there's a more complicated story behind it, but someone did get in
Right.
trouble, Max Vision and the whole. But
So
it's been
the
done
trick is
before.
is the government going to do it? I don't think a government will, because of trying to get permission and get it all together. I can imagine a researcher thinking, I wonder if this would actually work, and it escaping, because that's how some worms. Right, if we go back to the Morris worm, that wasn't supposed to get loose
Right.
and tear up the internet. So I can imagine somebody saying, look, this is how easy it is to fix. Let me do a demo, and not realizing that the firewall wasn't blocking that traffic.
So I accidentally let the fix
Accidentally let it out. But one of the things that's not happening a lot right now from what I've seen, apparently some of them do close the door behind themselves, but for the most part, the Mirai apparently doesn't really go in and fix anything or close anything.
Or why wouldn't it just change the default password?
In some cases, apparently, you need to flash firmware. And in some cases,
Well, that makes sense.
it's read-only, so it's a chip. You can't even flash it. Because there are
I've run
a
into
whole bunch
that,
of different,
too. You
there are a whole
can't
bunch of
change
different
the-
devices. So
well,
this
there's
is
a difference between a default password and a backdoor password. So default password is the one that the user uses
Right.
to log in. But as I've spoken about before in firmware, and we've talked about vulnerability, there's a backdoor password that is embedded inside the firmware that you can't change unless you change the firmware.
So I ran security cameras at the house. The last set of security cameras I ran at the house before the upgrade, it had SSA. It had 22 and 23 open, but the only user interface that they admitted to having
was the web.
was a port 80 interface that needed Internet Explorer because it was coded in ASP, not even ASPX.
And could you
and then
change
there
the
was
port?
some-
Could you even change the port
No,
from port 80?
no. And then there was some weird port forward you did to get the UI on your phone.
Yeah.
But obviously, if 23 is open, there's default creds, and there
Yeah.
were, but it was even the admin was the web admin was HTTP only.
Yep.
Maximum of you couldn't change the username from admin, and it was a maximum of 6 digits.
Yep. I have devices like that.
But the thing is, it's your security camera system. You want it open to the internet, so you open the port that they tell you, or the 3 ports they tell you.
So the
and
app can get at it.
So the app
which
can
is
get
not
at it.
port 80 because most ISPs block
Right.
port 80, so you can't run web servers at your house.
So who knows what you can get at, but you know that the authentication is garbage because it's 6. When it comes up.
Right.
So there were a whole bunch of different devices, but the other problem that one of the problems I do see that if somebody did that, I assume the bad guys would be better about closing the door behind them. However,
Right.
it would still make a difference. I'm not advocating this. I kind of like the idea, but it's illegal. So, and don't do this. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not your lawyer. Don't do this. Don't go to jail over this. But I kind of like the idea because of those machines that it's on a ROM, right? It's like, you can't fix it.
You can't fix it.
All right, well, let's just turn that off. And currently, this is not important. In some cases, they can't write to anything, but currently a reboot will knock this off. The problem is as soon as you reboot, it
Gets reinfected.
gets reinfected. But if you can patch them or if you can spot these things on the network, the challenge
The problem is they're going to change IP address. So this is exactly the situation I was in 2001 and 2003 when we dealt with the university network, and we had the conversation of, well, if people are vulnerable, can't we just turn them off? Which that's bad, and especially in a university environment. Because like stuff that you need, that the university needs, that researchers need, that faculty needs,
I was just going to say,
gets turned off.
You were at a university that does research, and I was recently at a huge research facility university, and it was like, if you turn off a machine, it could have been running for 3 years on a calculation or observing something.
Exactly.
And it's
but the other
if you've
thing
read
is,
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, if you interrupt those long-term things, the mice die or whatever, and then we never get the answer to the ultimate question.
Yes, it's bad. But also, what I experienced during that time was, if you switch from, okay, let's not worry about what's vulnerable, let's just worry about what's infected. And if you turn off, from a layer 3 perspective, their IP address or their port on the switch, because you've got a MAC address that you can associate, so let's turn off their port, what do? They're like, oh, let me just unplug that and plug it into a new port. So now you need a different level of technology, and our filter was advanced so that it didn't matter which port they plugged into, like the MAC address was blocked, and we went through that whole progression. But it was a cat and mouse game to basically...
NAC, so there we go, NAC's going to...
Then NAC, that was when NAC Solutions that's how NAC was born, was 2001.
And as much as a lot of us make fun of NAC or NAP, depending on... it could help here.
It could. So do you just take off, in our case... In that time was the network, but now we're talking about the internet. Can you take off what's vulnerable? Can you get? I don't know if you can easily get. I've been there. You can't easily get rid of stuff.
What are you going to do?
Requires
cooperation between ISPs, peering. They can't even work out peering relations. They haven't fixed BGP, right? It's possible, but with the balkanization of the internet, with governmental thing, it's I don't know. There are solutions, but I don't know the feasibility of them. And I think it may have to get worse. And this is where, as I said to Chris before earlier, I'll just throw the two words out there: software liability. If we look at last week, it was I forget who it was on a Slack channel or a Skype group or something I was in. Somebody commented, "Twitter's down. I guess I'll be productive today." And they came back like 2 minutes later and said, GitHub's down. Like, we're done. It's over, right? That's the end of the world. And like I said, I will tell you my offline story after we're not streaming. Sorry, listeners, but you can probably imagine people doing really dumb things and thinking they're protected and then not, and then it being really, really, really embarrassing.
And I have some stories.
So I had
should
two
the FBI
questions.
hack botnet victims to save the internet? Is an article in there, likely covering.
Yeah, it's covering this topic. How do we do it?
There was another article that said like why the government won't be able to save you, why they won't get involved. How do you guys feel about the government stepping in to fix this issue?
I'm here from the government, and I'm here to help you.
Michael,
I never used to say that.
Michael, you're right over there. You're just quiet tonight.
I'm as predictable.
Michael, I heard your sphincter slam shut as I said that phrase I just uttered, because I know where you come in on that.
I'm old enough. I stopped giving a shit what people thought. Bad idea. Please no.
Reagan had a thought about this. It wasn't about technology, but
He had the scariest words in it. Yeah, no, it's listen, I have a question though, and it's one
What's
people
the
aren't
problem
gonna
we're
like.
trying to
And
solve?
It's going to be first of all, what was actual harm from this? Because we talk about the I told you so, all these things could happen, and then the second thing is we're just talking about vulnerable devices, but there's a distinction between something that's vulnerable and something that's being actively exploited, right? And do we need to make that distinction to be more clear about it when we're in the thick of these things?
Well, my question, which was a variation of yours, is like, since when do we worry about DDoS?
Well, when DDoS takes out DNS, which breaks the internet,
We worry about DDoS.
when DDoS, so supposedly, according to Sophos, this was nowhere near the full Mirai botnet that came to bear on Dyn. So effectively,
You know, when I think that I'm sorry, I'm going to make another very controversial statement right now. When I think that the full Mirai botnet is going to kick into full force is election night.
yeah,
November
yep,
8th.
yes, I believe that.
And there's all kinds of crazy theories that the Obama administration was behind. There's an article.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can go read it. It's in the
there's-
show notes. Wiki.securityweekly.com. This is episode 47. Go read it. There's a conspiracy theorist article. The Obama administration was behind the attacks on the election hacking that were somehow, in some way, shape, or form, supposed to change the election, disrupt voter confidence. They were supposed to be an anti-Trump thing, and if all else fails, the Obama administration is behind all of this and is going to, and they have sources from Fort Meade,
have
Jeff.
a third term, right?
Yes, a
They're
third
gonna
term.
stay
That's
in-
what they said in the article.
right.
There is
it's
no
a crazy
transfer
article.
of power.
It's craziness.
You know what? I think Costco's still open. They sell those really big rolls of tin foil. I'll be back.
Yes, you
But
need that for the
here's
story.
what, every time I talk to friends deep in government or who were deep in government, the same thing. And this actually came up the other night when we were in D.C. It's somebody was talking about conspiracy theories in the government, and the reaction from folks from a congressional aide to others was like, have you ever seen our government work? Do you think they could do this? It's like
Conspiracy theorists give
Conspiracy
the government
theorists-
way too much credit.
way too much credit. I mean, granted, there are things that our government has done. Go ask Guatemalans about the CIA during Eisenhower. That country's still digging out from a 30-year civil war that we precipitated. Let's not talk about installing the Shah, throwing over, the various things we've done through the years. But those come out quickly, and it's only a handful of people involved. But the idea of this mass, large-scale conspiracy, it's like, wait, are the same contractors that made the Obamacare website responsible for hacking this?
Well, so this comes from
exactly.
This is from the Common Sense Show, and they state, the Obama administration is undoubtedly the source of the attacks. Nobody believes that this was contracted out to a third party for security reasons. He says that every single one of his sources stated that shadowy forces believe that Trump even has a chance of winning. They will pull the plug on the election, and that these attacks were but the first round, and this was the opening act for what is to follow.
Is this at InfoWars? Where is this?
No. There's
here's
something
the
about
thing.
also moving of $75 trillion from Goldman Sachs. That's in there. That's in there too.
Can we move on to some serious news reporting? Please.
Look, I'm not saying the government doesn't do things.
This is the best one.
Okay.
He said, I asked when the war would go nuclear. I was told that very early on in the conflict, there was a concern that if too many nukes go off around the planet, we could suffer from a nuclear winter in which sunlight is blocked from reaching the Earth. Plants will die, and the mass of humanity will stop. I can't do it with a straight face.
You got to turn it into that whole bit from Ghostbusters. Cats and dogs living in you.
Yes.
You know what? If we get to that state with the nuclear war,
what's the conclusion? Please wrap it up.
This is why the criminal elite have dug tunnels under DIA and elsewhere. This could be one of the funniest articles that I've ever read.
Look, I mean, there are government conspiracies. The guy in the White House promised to have the most transparent administration ever, and he's hidden more stuff and whatever. No matter where your politics are, his promise is to be transparent. He's only been transparent about his motives. His administration has not been transparent, and it's. I think that's common once they find out that the military takes commander-in-chief seriously, and they get power. It's We're not a political. Let's stop. Let's go. Let's move on because
It is a good point. I think from cybersecurity, as they term it in this context, right? Everyone drink.
You said cyber.
The president is the commander-in-chief of the military.
He's the
now,
cyber commander-in-chief.
I'm not the world's best political analyst by any stretch of the imagination. The president can try to influence laws, and we all talk about the issues like the amendments and gun control and abortion and all that stuff, and then the president can try and have influence through lobbying and appointment of Supreme Court justices and all that stuff, right? That's one side. But when the president is sworn into power, they are commander-in-chief of the military, which means they control all of the military special operations and, as it stands today, cybersecurity operations.
Cyber command. Yep.
Cyber command, and
that's
let's
part of
not
it.
forget what agencies fall into the military.
NSA. I mean,
NSA,
I've read
CIA.
conspiracy theories,
Well, CIA,
much like nuclear winter.
well, see, nuclear winter's a real thing, but these are people dragging things up, and if we reach that point, I want to ride the bomb down like in Doctor Strangelove.
Here's to you, Slim Pickens.
Slim Pickens.
Was that?
I just
Was
want.
that movie
I
in
just,
black and white?
It was black and white, so you haven't
I-
seen it.
I want.
So
to
you
be
guys saw it in the
strapped
movie
onto
theaters then,
I
right?
want to be strapped onto the bomb, my beard blowing in the breeze, screaming "Yeah!" as the
Somebody
bombs
Google
land on.
who is Slim Pickens.
If you,
Was that Orson
No.
Welles?
No, it's Peter Sellers.
Peter Sellers played several roles, and then
No, but who did?
General Buck Turgidson, and the waters and the fluids, and oh my,
I don't think I've ever watched Doctor Strangelove.
Oh my gosh.
oh my God.
I don't think I. Now I'm
You are not
Children.
qualified to do
Stanley Kubrick. Thank you very much.
Kubrick, yeah,
Kubrick,
yes, it was. It's
1964. So you guys were in like college and stuff.
yes. I did not see it in the theater, but I did see it. Actually, you know what? I may have seen it in the theater with one of my sisters when they
They
were
didn't
in
even have
college.
VCR players.
That's right.
Come on. How could you can't see it on DVD? They hadn't even really invented TVs yet.
They had those. They had those flip card things that they put around the circle, and you spun it and looked through the little slot. You know? When the horse goes galloping around.
I love having you guys on the show. It makes me feel so young. It's awesome.
Oh man.
Where do you want to go next? You want to go dirty cows? You want to go serial
Are we back
killers?
to milking machines?
They are not, in fact,
Well, we're talking politics. We could always go to
dirty cow.
the Fourth Amendment.
Yeah, you're gonna put your lawyer hat on.
I'll put my So the other big
Well,
thing.
don't Supreme Justices like wear the beards or the hair?
That's
the
only in
wigs.
England.
The wigs?
That's in England.
Oh,
England, they
wrong
wear the
country.
wigs.
Yeah.
Wrong country.
Yeah, we can pretend to be in the UK.
I'll put this on.
Now you look like Ben Franklin.
So,
Yeah,
yes.
we're talking about the amendments, and I'm
There
going to
you
put
go.
on the founding fathers
yeah,
here. Here we
but,
go. I'm gonna
Mark-
light it on fire.
All right,
at the
pop
end of the
quiz,
show.
youngster. Who wrote the Constitution?
Why do you ask? I just told you.
Stanley
I was
Kubrick.
Orson Welles? John Hancock? It's like one of those shows where they go man on the street and they ask simple questions and people just blank.
How many
I
Supreme
think,
Court justices are there?
Oh, come on now.
There
That's
are-
not fair. This is
are
payback for all the old jokes now. They're
Right.
going to make me look stupid.
So there are 8 Supreme Court
Eight?
justices,
Eight.
but there are
Currently.
supposed to be 9.
Oh, because there's one seat open.
Right.
The
One
new
seat open.
president.
Because
is gonna
Turtle Boy,
appoint. That- I knew,
won't
that I
let them
knew.
appoint somebody. So I think Jefferson gets a little more credit than Hancock for Constitution, don't you, Jeff?
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit more.
Thanks, guys.
There's
I
a-
wasn't there like you guys for the actual
The
signing of
signing.
it, so I don't
primary,
know.
the primary author, I think he's got a university named after himself.
Well, and like I said,
In
you
the
guys were
Colonial
there
League.
when it was
We were
signed.
there.
And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
You have more background on this than I do.
Right.
Yep, I've been invited to his home, hanging out with him.
hanging out.
So,
Like when I was little, I watched like Star Wars and
the
in
other
theater.
the other big
when I was-
sort of thing that happened that's technology, security related, but it's also political, would be the continuous revelations of WikiLeaks. They keep putting stuff out there. And somebody, I don't remember who it was, but somebody said something on Twitter about complaining that WikiLeaks is getting...
Oh, wow.
Was it great? Oh my God!
Wait a minute.
Oh my God! Put it out!
WikiLeaks.
Somebody was saying that WikiLeaks, they're getting flack for violating the law, but they're reporting information that might lead to revelations that other people are breaking the law. And what's the difference? And putting my scholarly hat on, I was wondering, well, yes, they might be revealing information that's revealing criminal behavior, unethical behavior, i.e. politics, political behavior. But what they're doing is violating the Bill of Rights, the Fourth Amendment. And is that a bigger deal than whatever information they're revealing?
Oh, let's go. We got to go in two directions. Just close your laptop because we're fuck the list of stories. So first, let's say WikiLeaks, because they dump stuff, right? I mean, they put everybody's information out there, right? They put everybody's information out there that they get, unless they happen to be Putin's right-hand man, in which case, when he gets doxxed, WikiLeaks is not interested, which is interesting. But the search and seizure question that I think is interesting was last week's warrant case where the FBI rolled into a house with a warrant for people to use their fingerprints to open their iPhones.
Yep.
A related...
And
Paul, would you do the honor of reading the Fourth Amendment so everybody who's never read the Constitution knows what we're
Marsha
talking
Hoffman gave...
It's in the notes. I put it
gave
up in
a
the notes.
keynote at B-Sides DC. She changed the topic last week when that happened because you would have to be... most people wouldn't think to challenge that, and most people wouldn't have the stones to challenge it because you right off the top, you've got a lawful warrant, and you say "F you" to the feds. You can just expect contempt of court and obstruction of justice on top of everything else, and unless you're some old idealist like one of the Jeff or me, and willing to go to prison and then use your one call to
I gotta put my wig on like the founding fathers.
So, unless you're going to make your call to EFF and stand on it. But the thing is, once you've given that,
my founding
it's
fathers
over.
wig.
Your founding fathers wig.
And this is Amendment 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Yes.
You did a great job.
Thank you. Wow, that's really itchy.
Yes. So, by the way,
that's
I'm
one
not,
direction.
That's a group, a band. They make music today, like kind of like the Beatles, but different.
Paul, do you feel embarrassed that you just admitted that you knew that? I'm a little uncomfortable for you. I just want to. I'm a little nervous.
So if you want to feel,
I have young kids, and they liked One Direction, and then I mentioned Britney Spears, and he was like, "Who's that?" And then I had to play Britney Spears, and then I had it on my phone, and then
how many members are in the band One Direction?
I got in the car like later, like the next day, and it started playing Britney Spears. My son was like, "Daddy, you listen to that music?" I'm like, no, it was from showing you the other day. He's like, "Yeah, right."
So if you
All
want
right, so which direction are we going first? We're going to talk about WikiLeaks, or we're going to talk about FBI overreach?
if you want to, if you're an Audible, or if you have access to the great courses, there's a course, Privacy, Property, and Free Speech, Law and the Constitution in the 21st Century, by Professor Jeffrey Rosen. It will turn you into an info war. It'll make you think that the Unabomber wasn't that far off, as the erosion of liberty. It's amazing. We could use a justice like Brandeis again, like without the eugenics thing.
You're throwing so much out there that people listening
It's
have
just
no idea what
they're
you're
like
talking
three people cheering along with me, a couple dozen cursing me, and the rest are like, "Shut up, Jack."
about. Do you have any stats on the age ranges of your listeners?
I've just completely lost control of the show. You're just,
How many branches of government are there, Paul?
God, what is going on now?
Let's see. There's four. There's the legislative, the executive, the judicial, and K Street.
I think it's Corona, Lajero, Seco, Viso. Oh, no, that's tobacco plant. Sorry.
Go ahead, Michael. Say
Indica,
something.
sativa. Oh, wait, that's that's once Massachusetts. If they don't fall for the tripe.
Can we?
Go? I mean, this is a fun conversation.
Thanks, Michael.
We're
Thanks
having
for
a great
backing me up on this. I want to talk about Android vulnerabilities.
That's Android. Yeah, so there is a new horrible Android.
Dirty cow. I want to talk about dirty cows. It's a really cool.
Yeah, let's not talk
dirty
about
cow.
stuff that we can't answer. Let's talk about the dirty
It's
cows.
not a free before use. Now I've just like my brain is completely melted. I don't remember anything right now. Maybe I should just let you guys talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Well, Jack, you had one direction. What's the second direction? Or is it WikiLeaks and its FBI overreach? Is that
Yeah, those two directions. There are two directions to go with that story.
Okay.
The FBI overreach one, and while Paul's trying to regain his composure, the challenge is, and this is not my brilliance, this is Marsha Hoffman's brilliance from her keynote. The challenge is, once they have the evidence, you're not going to get it suppressed. If they grab your phone, can't get into it, and then want your thumbprint or your password, traditionally that goes back before a judge. Mm-hmm. And now you might have called in EFF or ACLU or whoever. But let's get that information up front, and now we've got it. And then there's a real difference in whether that information implicates you in more than they knew about, which becomes a Fourth Amendment issue, but only if you haven't already given it up. Because once you've given it up, even Rick Astley.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though, just to point, and we on Enterprise we had a conversation earlier today about passwords and things related to authentication. So the Fifth Amendment talks about self-incrimination, and what's interesting is in a criminal case, they can't compel you to give up a password or like a combination to a safe, but they can compel you to give the physical key or your biometric. And that's been held up now a couple different times in a couple different cases, which is why every time people love biometrics and hate passwords, I always kind of shake my head a little bit and go, they have some value to it. So it's always interesting in these types of cases, as I think what you just laid out, Jack, makes a lot of sense. But it's also, criminal cases fall under a different type of a category, and there's certain protections that we should have, but some of those protections we don't have. Now, it looked like they wrote a broadly searched warrant, and that's not typically the way it's supposed to work. So it's interesting that happened, and I'm glad somebody pushed back, and hopefully we'll get better case law on it.
Right.
And
it's worth noting, to your point about what is and isn't, they can force you to give blood for blood alcohol, and that's not self-incrimination because that's physical evidence, even though they have to stab you to get it. And Paul's just freaking out. Paul has completely lost it. It's.
He just wants to talk about the dirty cow.
No, I'm giving up on that. I want to talk about a story for you, Jack. While we're all wound up,
all right.
I've got a story for you. This one is sponsored by Visa. Sponsored by Visa. Learn how chip technology makes card payments more secure. When Vista first introduced a roadmap to bring chip technology to the U.S.,
Visa.
What
Vista?
Visa.
Visa?
Vista's a Windows version, but Visa is the card company. It's set out to improve the security of merchant systems and eliminate counterfeit fraud, making the world a better place, Jack. And this was actually an article that came up in my security feeds. Because obviously, the problem is that people were copying the magnetic stripe and using people's credit cards in the source.
That's right. That's called fraud.
And wouldn't they check the signature?
The whole signature-based thing is complete and total bullshit. But yes. Let me
Kind of like I signed your signature on that purchase I made earlier this evening.
let's just say
Put that
this:
chip right in there and it worked fine.
It worked great.
properly designed and properly implemented, there are technologies that could make it harder to perform fraud.
Like chip and pin.
Chip and pin is imperfect.
But it only addresses a certain type of fraud.
It
addresses
addresses
a
the Jeff stealing my credit card and then going to the store, putting the chip in and needing the pin.
There are
Or cloning it.
There is some
Right.
interest
More
in
importantly.
some technology that's been around a really long time that is a credit card where your PIN is a one-time password like a Google or Duo or RSA token that's actually embedded in the cards. And so there's like chip and pin.
But you need an app on your phone to get the pin.
No. It's actually a displays on there. And so if any of you remember years ago, eBay used to give you, PayPal or eBay.
One of them, yeah.
Or maybe it was both when they were
In cahoots.
you could get the classic RSA dongle, or you could get a credit card form factor that was just a thick credit card, and you pressed a button and the little
numbers
LCD would show up.
Yep.
Now, apparently, the abuse of a wallet, they would like go all Samsung Note 7 and go up in flames, which is why they stopped making them.
That protects online fraud. Not if I steal your card, I can still push the button and get the code into it.
Now, it depends on the implementation there, because
there was a fingerprint reader on.
No. One of the things that they said that one of the companies that was pushing this technology years ago was like, so you have your 4-digit PIN. So you like push the thing in, you put in your 4-digit PIN and the number that's hanging out.
I gotcha.
So you would have to do something dumb like write your PIN on your credit card, and nobody's that dumb. Well, okay, never mind.
We were just talking about how in enterprise security we can help people do that.
We're sidestepping the issue here with all of this, and I'll leave out the technology discussion that Jack and I like to engage in, and just say, but that's presuming that fraud is a problem, and
there's the bottom line. That presumes fraud's a problem. Fraud is a problem in some cases, and then.
But it's not endemic across the system,
right?
And we're also suppressing.
How large
that there's
a problem
cost
does
of
it
convenience
have to
associated
be
with
before it's
payment cards,
considered endemic?
and it's fine.
One of the challenges that there is that Michael, we've talked about. My thing is I don't care. Fraud's not that big a problem. There are places where fraud's a huge issue, where chip and PIN or SIG is going to make it better. Like when I need gas in the middle of the night, and the only place there is sketchy, and sure enough, my card gets popped.
Right.
I
agree with that.
But
qualify
the statement, though. Fraud's not a problem to the consumer because consumers are largely protected. It's still a huge problem. It's a
huge problem in the middle. It doesn't cost Visa money.
The trillions that are being processed, you're talking about single-digit percentages.
Well, it's what PCI was designed to do, which is codify pushing the risk downstream to the merchants and processors. That way, the consumers are protected, the banks and card brands are protected. So we codify who's responsible. That's what PCI did.
It's a fraction of a percentage.
Thing.
I mean, I'm not,
Michael, it's a fraction of a percentage.
I'm not saying that if you're a business accepting this, you're not getting screwed at some point, or it's not working out in your favor. What I'm just saying is, but that's taking a micro issue and conflating it to the macro system.
Right.
System wide,
it's not that big. And as I say every time this comes up, it's like I don't care. I want to be drunk with buddies somewhere other than the United States.
In Amsterdam, and buy a ticket on a train platform at 11:30 at night with a credit card
2
issued
in the morning,
from your U.S. bank.
Instead of it doesn't work, and then I've got to, panhandle enough money to get on the train. And I'm not exaggerating when I say Amsterdam, Oslo, Utrecht, Berlin. I have had that challenge in all 4 of those places. And I have then a couple of times borrowed money or been loaned, given money, or somebody else used a card, or I've walked up at 2 in the morning in Amsterdam to one of those freestanding ATMs because I want to get to the hotel, and I'm like, I don't gamble in Vegas, but I'm going to put my debit card into an ATM on a sidewalk in Amsterdam at 2 in the morning so I can get back to my hotel. So so what we've done is we've spent an enormous amount of money in forcing merchants to spend all sorts of money, and we still don't have compatibility. And so I don't know where.
So then, didn't we set ourselves back? I mean, how many times then when we go check out, does somebody have to comment on it? It's wildly inconsistent. It's gotten more inconsistent.
Oh, absolutely.
And everybody's kind of pissed about it, right?
And our implementation of chip and signature is horrendous.
Oh, it is horrible.
Chip and signature, chip and pin, grr.
It's not even chip and pin.
Let's go back to ka-chunk. Oh wait, the last couple of credit cards I got, that doesn't work.
They don't have the embossing anymore.
Google,
they're not
Google
embossed.
Wallet, Android Pay, and Apple
Wait, didn't
Wallet
you just
solve all that?
Didn't you just say something about Android vulnerability? Didn't you just say that the Android milking machine vulnerability is...
But Android Pay is awesome. All I do is just wave my phone over the device and I'm good. They're like, you want a receipt? I'm like, no, I got it on my phone. It's awesome. I'm good to go. No?
Yeah, and Visa has their own now, and MasterCard has their own now. Walmart came out with theirs.
That's the problem.
Everybody's got their own, and they're not all cross compatible. You know what's actually not as much as it used to be. You screw people up when you give them money. I remember years ago complaining about people not being able to make change.
Isn't that crazy?
Now you try to give somebody cash and they freak out. They just freak out.
Well, now I think everyone that works at a retail store is really confused because I'm like, do you accept Android Pay? Like 75% of the people look at me like, huh? Like, what is it? I'm like, give me the thing, and I wave my phone, and they're like, oh, that's pretty cool. It worked. Like, because you got like the little icon on the card reader that has the little Wi-Fi thing with the phone, and I'm like, if someone's gonna break into my phone and get my credit card, they're gonna break into my phone and get my credit card. They're gonna get way more than my credit card. They're breaking into my phone.
I don't know what you guys have done, but because of the amount that I travel. And I have a phone like most modern plans that doesn't charge per text message. I get a lot of texts because every time I use one of my credit cards, I have it text me. And it's just because I want to know right away because, I travel enough. I've finally found a card that doesn't cause trouble, but that's because it's a card designed for travelers, and that means they just kind of turn the dial down. Why are you stroking your breasts? Paul's stroking his breasts.
Now ashes are going to drop on it, and my chest is going to be on fire. It's going to be awesome. Wait till the after show.
God. If only they could zoom in on your pants right now.
They were black. They're now gray.
They are gray.
Yes.
Gray.
With ash.
Gray. That's
very ashen.
Is that the pubes? Is that great?
Do you have
pubes?
any other meaningful stories?
Well, I did have. I had a lot of stories about like computer security stuff. They were
Every now and then I say this. I think you do too, Paul. Hey, folks, you check out the wiki show. Check out the show notes because there are often a lot of good stories there. We don't always get to cover them all, and sometimes you read them for yourself and realize we're full of shit. And we're just spewing our own agendas drunkenly.
I think that was the mission of the show.
Yes,
spewing our agendas drunkenly.
And at that, we've cheers.
Yeah, we'll move some of those to next week. Just really quick, there was a Linux vulnerability that now works on Android, and it is a race condition that allows you to overwrite files owned as root or any other user, as a regular user.
Killer.
But basically, you can root your Android phone now with this vulnerability. There was an interesting website called Rootabout, which lets you search for images in their sources. The days of booter services are numbered. From Krebs was an interesting one. Godzilla can teach Japan about its cybersecurity. I was really excited about reading this article It was really lackluster for me. If you read it and get something out of it, please send us email. Lori Love talks about MPs urge Obama to halt hacking suspects' extradition to the U.S.
Yep.
Apparently, there's not a whole lot of extradition of hackers from the UK to the U.S., and there's another case going on, and some people are pushing for extradition.
I got. This is not in there, but if you're a Skype user, be really, really careful because apparently there's some sort of credential reuse, brute force. I've got several contacts in Skype. Granted, I have a lot of contacts in Skype, as does Paul. And I'm getting the links sent from compromised accounts, and they tend to go either to Baidu, which you probably will trigger an alarm if you're in the U.S. or Western Europe. But the ones to be really careful of, and it's not just this, but I've seen a lot of this, is the LinkedIn obfuscated. They're LinkedIn redirects. So it looks like it's going to LinkedIn, and if you click it, you end up someplace even worse than LinkedIn, if that's possible.
So that concludes this week's Security Weekly. I've been your host, Jack Daniel. Thanks everyone for watching. Hey, real Jack Daniel, take us out.
Over and out.